Hello and welcome to
Okay, just
hello
stop.
hello and welcome
No,
to
because you sound like you're giggling because you're just going hello, hello, hello.
stop. Hello and welcome to this week's what the fuck is
Please
this?
just stop.
Okay.
Just stop. Let it run. You can edit it out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Online Warriors podcast. My name is Nerd Bomber.
And I'm Tech.
And guys, it feels like we got hit by a bus in a good way. We spent the weekend at a music festival. If you're not familiar with Osheaga, it's basically the Canadian version of like Coachella, Lollapalooza, a little bit more chill, super fun though. We saw some great acts. That said, guys, we're exhausted. We are in our 30s. And we did 3
We're not
full
built
days.
for this.
I mean, I would do it again in a heartbeat, but my feet, my dogs are barking. Tactic hates when I say that, but guys, my dogs are barking.
Such a weird thing to say.
But they are. My knees are stiff, and I could really use a nap. So, without further ado, we are unfortunately going to skip the news and the what are you up to this week, and we're going to do a little bit of a recap of an old interview. We'll be revisiting our interview with Joseph Balderrama, who is the voice actor of one of the main characters in It Takes Two, but he is also an actor that you may have seen on the big screen in F1 recently, which is now, I believe, the highest grossing Brad Pitt movie of all time. So it was super cool to see him in that movie, and we wanted to revisit that interview. Without further ado, let's get into it. Joseph Balderrama, one of the lead voice actors in critically acclaimed It Takes Two, is here with us today to talk a little bit about the industry and the game that just came out. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Very well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it.
So, for the first question, I wanted to know if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you know you wanted to get into screen and voice acting, and how did you get your start?
Well, that's unfortunately a long time ago now, sadly, because I'm old, awful. But so basically, I'm from Mexico. I was born in Mexico, and I lived there until I was 10 years old, and I moved to England. Yeah, back in 1986, and then lived here since then, and went to drama school here. And when I left, when I was in the last, so my first professional job at drama school was a tour of Romeo and Juliet, and in that cast there was this guy who played Capulet. Neil, his name was, and he did a lot of voiceover work. And at that point in time, when you went to drama school, you kind of basically just thought about doing theatre and, film and TV and stuff. And voice acting was like this sort of holy grail area that only the very anointed got to be involved with. And it was sort of a very mysterious clique of wizards, really. Basically, who no one knew how you got in. Basically, seemed impenetrable. It potentially still seems that way to some people. I don't know, but certainly that's how it was. And randomly, so like I said, he did a lot of voiceover work, and he was doing some looping on a film. He did a lot of looping, and he happened to be. This was after the tour was finished. He happened to be in a room where this frantic sort of. I don't know whether he was casting. I think he was an engineer on this. They were doing Alien versus Predator, I believe, and they were like, "We need someone to be an Aztec god." And Neil, very sort of tongue in cheek, said, "Well, I know a Mexican," and they were like, "That'll do." And so I then fast forward a week or so after that point, and I find myself at Pinewood in a booth with this guy on the other side of the booth. It was kind of very surreal, going, "Right, so basically we've got this Aztec god and you've just got to chant some stuff." And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I mean, I speak Spanish, but you mean you want me to improvise in Nahuatl? And they were like, yeah, that'll do. And I was like, okay, shit. So there I was, my first sort of professional voiceover job, essentially, improvising a language I did not speak. So, quite frankly, not many people do speak Nahuatl anymore because it's what the Aztecs spoke. So there I was, basically, what I ended up doing was sort of inventing this Gregorian-like chant and listing all of the pyramid sites I remember. So if you go and rewatch Alien versus Predator, somewhere in the midst of the movie, there's like this sacrifice scene, and there'll be a very distant chanting sound of me going Chichen Itza, la 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 la, or, I can't even fucking remember now, but it was pretty awful. And then suddenly I just ended up doing random pieces of voiceover from there that initially it was sort of very niche stuff that they needed a Hispanic voice, and at that time there was not an abundance of Hispanic people working in the UK. And I ended up really initially doing a lot of games. My first one was a game. Oh God, it was The Wheelman was one of my first games. I remember having like a sort of featured role in a long time ago with that. This was a Vin Diesel franchise game. And then it sort of just went from there. And Side UK, who does a lot, was one of the big sort of post-production casting and post-sound houses here in London, just ended up getting a hold of my name and have been very generous and used me a lot since then. And then I ended up getting a voiceover agent properly in and around 2008. And then things got a little bit more formal. And I ended up just sort of doing more stuff. I did a lot of radio drama. And that was another thing I did at drama school. They did this amazing thing. They had a competition, like a radio competition, basically, that was sort of sponsored by the BBC. And they would select 3 students from each year, all the sort of accredited drama schools, and they would have this sort of radio drama off. And I was on the Lambda team. So I got sort of early exposure to sort of how to be in front of a microphone and stuff that was really invaluable in later life. So
you got a heck of improvisation skills too along the way. Holy cow.
Yeah, well, definitely the Aztec thing. That's one of the stories that I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. That was quite I don't know if you guys are familiar with it's a show called The Toast of London.
No, unfortunately not.
It's on Netflix. I suggest you check it out. It's by this very funny English actor / comedian called Matt Berry. And it's about a voiceover artist who's an actor. And there's this character called Clem Fandango in it, who basically is this sort of very young ad exec on the other side of the glass who always asks asinine questions and irritates and so, that was my Clem Fandango moment where the guy was like, just whatever you like, something in Aztec, that'll do. I was like, oh my God. Anyway. Yeah, so that was a long answer to your very simple question, but that's how it started.
I mean, hey, that sounds like a really interesting start, and it seems like you've gotten to dabble in a lot of different media. What would you say has been your favorite? Like, obviously, you've done games. You said you did movies and TV show voiceover and even radio shows. If you could only do like one, which one would you prefer to do?
Honestly, if you'd asked me this question before I started working, and I'm not saying this just because this is the most recent thing that's out, but if you'd asked me this before I started working on It Takes Two, I might have said theatre, because I think that as an actor, you've got most control over your work in theatre, because no one can change it once you do it.
Right.
And it changes in and of itself, every night in theory. But since having done It Takes Two, it blew my mind, I have to say. It was the first time that I'd ever worked on a game from like basically grassroots, essentially like the full mocap experience from beginning to end. And I was on the project for 2 years, myself and Annabelle, along with other actors as well. But we were the obviously the main two doing the mocap along with Joseph. And it was just the most freeing, the most liberating, and the most exhilarating form of acting I think I've ever had in my career, really. It was so spontaneous. It was so sort of alive in a weird way, because, there we were in this very heavily carpeted room in Stockholm with 360 cameras pointing at us in a room that had no windows. So essentially there's no atmosphere there. And there's no set and there's no anything apart from us looking. Well, Annabelle looked fabulous, but I looked ridiculous in that suit. And you would think it would be really hard, kind of. You would think it would be a much harder way to sort of get into a world, but I just found it the most liberating thing ever because it was so efficient as well. Like just being able to, we would do 3 days normally in Stockholm, sort of once or so a month, or sort of 3-4 month batches. And then they'd go away and, integrate all of that into the game. And then we'd come back again and we'd get through like 30 pages of dialogue in that time. And if you were to compare that to a film or TV, 30 pages of dialogue takes like 3 months or, it's longer anyway. But it was just amazing, really. And the only odd thing was that for the cutscenes anyway, we could only they had to have a full take of any one scene. So if you, forgot a line or you fucked up, that was it. The take was dead. So every take, that's the whole take, which kind of also was amazing. The cool thing about it was almost like theater, is that whatever take you see in the game was a full take. Like that's what happened. That whole take. So it was kind of like, I don't know, like a one-shot movie, but into short tranches, And I think in the end, like the cutscenes alone in that game are easily as long as a feature film. I think I think there's something in the order of, well over an hour and a half of just cutscenes.
And I mean, I think the way that you said you guys did it all in kind of like one-shot chunks too, like it makes all of those cutscenes, because we played the game and we loved it, and it just felt super organic too. Like it didn't feel choppy like you sometimes see in other games. It just felt like it flowed really well and was really organic, and now we know why.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why, for sure, because, and we kept going until Joseph was happy with that particular run-through take or whatever. And, it was, you could see, like, we had screens up in the room as well. So you could see what our doll-like versions of ourselves looked like within the space that we were in. So they would digitize in a very basic form anyway, like, where we would be like on Beatles or whatever random crazy stuff we happened to be doing. We could sort of see it in the corner of our eye on the wall on a massive TV screen. And then we would just sort of play the scene with that as a sort of reference outside kind of thing, out of the corner of our eyes. So it was, technically it was certainly a huge steep learning curve because I'd never done that before. And, I hope I get an opportunity to do that again. But, the game itself, I think, was such a special, unique thing. My relationship with Annabelle was, we did chemistry reads, almost like a film before when they were casting it. And me and Annabelle were, and it was all improvising. A lot of the game, obviously it was scripted, but there's a lot of improvisation that they let us, run with. Yeah. And I think that was another reason potentially why it also felt organic, was because, our relationship grew literally through the game, and we shot it in chronological order.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it felt so authentic.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. That's gratifying to know.
So you were in a starring role in It Takes Two, but you also had some involvement with Hazelight Studios in A Way Out. How did you come to get involved with them specifically?
Again, that was through Side in the UK. They just cast me. They listened to an audition I did, and Joseph, I guess, liked my voice. And in A Way Out, I was played like a number of Hispanic and American prison guys, obviously. And but that was fun because I did meet Joseph. He directed all of the voice sessions in person in London. And so I had actually met him before when we came to do the auditions. And I don't know whether he remembered me or not, but maybe he did. I don't know. But yes, I auditioned for it, and that was how it happened. It wasn't any more complicated than that, really.
So you obviously mentioned that you met Joseph Fares. So as the fan base, we see videos and interviews where he's this super high energy creative guy. What is it like working with him? And what is it like behind the scenes with him? Does he bring that same type of energy? And how does that kind of influence the way you do your job?
I'm not entirely sure he ever sleeps. Yeah, I mean, what you see is what you get. He is off the scale of anyone I've ever met in terms of energy. That guy is wired differently, I think, than most human beings. He's just he is nuts. And, when we first met him, me and Annabelle both afterwards, and he won't be offended by me saying this, but we were both like, he's not going to be like that the whole way through, is he? That's not possible to be quite so I've never met with anyone with such confidence, but also just energy and assurance and just like a sort of laser sort of certitude that his way was right. And he never wavers, ever. Like I never saw him go, I don't know. Like he just knew one way or another, whatever decision needed to be made, it was like, yeah, it's that one. And that's kind of like, it's sort of staggering really. And and the whole way through, he was like, this is going to be, he kept saying, this is going to be amazing. No one's ever seen or done anything like this before. And me and Annabelle were like, to be honest, we got the size and the story as it was written. So we didn't know where it was going ever.
Oh, really?
And we would get our scenes normally when we were on the flight over to Stockholm. So we'd have like a night to learn it.
Wow.
And that's another reason why there's a lot of improvisation, I think, as well, because we hadn't actually had the material for very long. But as we were progressing through it, we knew our characters so well that they kind of were writing for us by the end of it as well. So it was very sort of simpatico and symbiotic by then. But it did just, we didn't know what was going on. And to be honest, when we were making it, it was very hard to understand what the hell was going on as well, because we couldn't see at that point all of the amazing game mechanics.
Right.
That, all of that stuff wasn't available to us. All we had was the story as we knew it. And we knew where it was going, roughly speaking. But, there we were 1 minute with talking frogs, and then we'd be with, Annabelle would be like trying to grapple with an enormous hammer or whatever.
Yeah, and you actually not only had to deal with that, but two major characters in the game, both Cody, the male lead, and the Book of Love, Dr. Hakim. So,
lest we forget, yes.
Yeah. So with that experience, how did you have to prepare differently for each role? Because they had very, very different personalities.
They are, but I fortunately didn't have to approach them simultaneously. So Joseph did the mocap for the book. So when we played those scenes with the book, Joseph would be speaking those lines and playing the part. And I would be Cody, obviously, and Annabelle would be May. And we just play the scenes, and he would do these crazy hip shaking gyrations. Like, oh my God, what are you doing, you nutbag? And then obviously it was all fabulous in the end. But at the time it was like, what are you doing? No, this is so off. You're insane. And then the first time I did it, essentially it worked a little bit like ADR. So we would watch, they would sort of do their magical thing that they do and make it look amazing. And then I would get the scene, and Cody and May and everything would look sort of like roughly as it did in the game. And I would ADR to what was already animated based on the mocap it had captured the previous trip. So I would be trying to basically fit to whatever Joseph had done. And quite frequently, Joseph's version of the lines bore no relevance to the actual lines that were written. And so there was always a little bit of jiggery pokery in terms of trying to get. But also he had this very, very unique cadence when he played the role, when he spoke it, which I always struggled to get away from because I didn't want it to sort of inform how I was vocally performing that part, which was really hard because I'd been in the room with him when he was doing it. So I always kind of had Joseph. It was a constant sort of arm wrestle in my head to get Joseph out of it and inject my own version of Hakim on top of Joseph. But in the end, I think it just worked out that the Book of Love is us both somehow.
Yeah, I can sort of see the bias as you explained it, where you want to just recreate what you had just lived. But that kind of segues into my next question about sort of these sounds and things that happen. One of the things that I've always been curious about are these kind of in-game tertiary sounds that characters make while they're playing. So like grunts, climbing, fighting, etc. What's the process for recording those, and what's your personal method to make sure that they sound lifelike?
Well, normally they just get recorded very anonymously and very separately, from the game. In other games, whenever you have that section of your recording session, it's normally oh, here we go. Okay, so now jump. Normally it's combat based. So there'll be lots of sort of, okay, this is low level impact. This is medium level stabbing. This is you're dead. And I guess because I've worked on a lot of games, I have a shorthand for how I might go through a sort of run of what they call them grunts. And you kind of, I always, the only way I can ever do them really is to actually do them. So I physically try and recreate whatever it's supposed to be that I'm supposed to be doing as much. But normally it's only ever explained to you. So normally in a game, you'll be like, okay, so here you're jumping from one building to the other or whatever. But with It Takes Two, because it was different. So we were doing a lot of the grunts and a lot of that stuff to picture, which was amazing. And it very rarely, in fact, I don't think I've ever worked on a game that it's happened on. So, you know, when you're tobogganing through the tobogganing one, when we're in the snow globe scene.
Sure, Toboggan World, we'll call it.
Right. Toboggan World, indeed. I did that to picture. And it was amazing because it makes it so much better, I think, and so much more real in a way. A lot of the movement-based noises were done like that. So they had basically done a little avatar of Cody and got him to do all the game mechanic moves that he does in the game without having the game. So they would just be playing me doing stuff.
Very
and then I would voice those movements by watching it. And in all honesty, I've never worked on a game where that's been done like that.
Oh.
That is really interesting.
It's normally always without picture and just a spreadsheet of lines, and they are grunts and they're descriptions of what those grunts are supposed to be. Like I said, heavy damage to the head or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely feel like having those pictures and videos in front of you will help you like evoke the emotion and tone for all of those noises. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was definitely invaluable, really.
Mm-hmm. So basically talking about the game in a broader scope, when It Takes Two was announced, it felt like it kind of took the gaming world at least by storm. Like everyone was super excited about the game and hyped. And then when it eventually came out, it released to glowing reviews. What was your reaction to the game's overall reception?
I mean, I was delighted. I just thought, I got to become really close with all the people at Hazelight. Not every single person, but, every time we went to Stockholm, we were like, the men in suits, basically, or the men and women in suits who used to come and parade around the office every so often and, have lunch with them all. And we kind of got to, certainly the core team, especially, became friends, I would say. And we became really sort of close. And I just, me and Annabelle both loved that job so much and loved the characters so much. And, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they don't play games, but, I hope one day they will. And I'll be like, that's what I do when I was a youngster. But, I was so happy that Joseph, his vision got realized into such a sort of close proximity to what he always set out to do. I think that was just hugely impressive. And I think all the guys who worked on the game and the women were they're all just such geniuses. I think every department at Hazelight, like I've said before, I think they're all wizards. I think they just did such an incredible job. And I think it was a labor of love. And I think you can see that in the game. And I think that people's response to it is just a reflection of all that love that was poured into that game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can definitely tell from playing it. It's a story. It's got a lot of heart. And it's also, told in a super creative way. Have you played the game yourself? And if so, outside of obviously flexing your co-op puzzle solving skills, what elements of the story do you hope stick with people who have played the game?
I've only played it at a friend's house because I don't have a games console in my house. So I played it at my sister's house, and her boyfriend is a big gamer. And so Hazelight sent me a copy of the game. And so I was like, I got it. So, I don't play a lot of computer games. I have to be honest. I don't play a lot. I used to. And I just sort of had kids, and I just don't find the time anymore. And so it's the first game I've actually physically played that I've ever done. And I've been doing them for a long time now. So that was a very strange experience, I have to say, as well, because obviously I was invested in the cutscene side of it, or the story side of it. The game, it was really fun. Like I just had so much fun. I was not great at it, but I think that's one of the really amazing things about it, is that it's very forgiving. You know how like when you fuck up, basically you just come right back, and you kind of don't get so frustrated. And I think the way that it forces you to engage with the other person in the room is just a piece of genius, because I think it's something that, you know, I think gaming can become, I suppose you can become quite separate from other people because they become voices, you know.
Mhm.
They're not physical people in the room with you normally, or often anyway, or you play by yourself or whatever, you know. And this, you literally can't do this unless someone else is there. So I think that makes it kind of unique. And it makes, I think the thing that I think I hope stays with people, and I hope people will just continue playing it, even if they've already completed it, is because it forces you to sort of have an engagement with someone else. And I think that, without sounding too kind of old fashioned and like corny, I think people don't, for all the social media and all the tech that we have to communicate, people don't actually communicate that well. And
there's timing and all sorts of things involved in this game.
Yeah, and this game just forces you to have an engagement with someone else through the vessel of the game. And I think that's just magic, actually. I think that's just a piece of genius storytelling and gameplay. And it sort of really is a marriage of all the things that are wonderful about gaming, you know, fun, and there's a very cohesive story that runs through it, which also hopefully makes you care more about getting to the end, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Your investment in those characters. I remember having a conversation with Joseph about, he had a real bugbear about people not completing games, you know, and he always said, you know, I don't want this to be a game that people don't have to complete. And I think that's maybe one reason why, you know, they wanted it to make it forgiving in that sense, that you could complete it without necessarily, you know, it wasn't so hard that you couldn't get there if you just persevered a bit.
Right.
And I don't know if I answered your question. I probably didn't, but
I think so.
Yeah, I think just being able to have a real connection with someone else while you do this, while you play the game, is hopefully what makes it an enduring game.
Yeah, we found this game to be our Saturday night couples time. Every weekend we would, you know, come together and clock in a couple hours and enjoy ourselves. So any advice to our listeners out there who may want to pursue a voice acting career?
Let me see. So I think the best thing you can do is have a voice reel. I think that's the one thing that you need above all else. Whether you make it yourself or you're able to pay a professional to do it, there are probably even famous people who don't really work as voice artists as such, but maybe like do commercials. Even they have a voice reel. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's the one tool that facilitates you getting work and facilitates you getting an agent. And I think there's lots of ways now to work in the voiceover industry without having an agent, because there's so many different platforms where you can, you know, just post your particular skill set up. But I think for all of those things, you need to have a voice reel, and it needs to be slick as you can make it. And so I think that's my best advice. I mean, I think you just got to have luck as well. But I think that goes for anything in this industry in terms of performance. You know, I don't think anyone makes it without a slice of luck somewhere along the way.
Yeah, a little bit of chance.
It just is. And unfortunately, no matter how talented you are or whatever, you just need a bit of luck sometimes. And so, you know, whether it's kissing the shamrock or whatever, you just got to be lucky. Be lucky and keep smiling and keep trying, really. And eventually something will give.
I'll include a video of my hip gyrating skills in my voice reel.
Please.
A little bit extra.
I think that's essential. I think that a hip gyration should be an essential part of anyone's voice reel.
So kind of wrapping up a little bit, what's next for you? Any upcoming projects you can share? I know you just recently tweeted about Battlefield. Anything you can tell us about that, maybe?
The only thing I'm allowed to tell you about that is that I'm in it, sadly. But yeah, the trailer and a lot of additional bits and pieces just dropped this weekend. So I was tweeting sort of sheepishly, just, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be cool. I mean, I'm still sort of in the midst of that, but I've done the bulk of it now, and that was intense. So it's intense. Battlefield is intense. It's a very
different from It Takes Two.
Very different from It Takes Two. Although they're both, you know, DICE used to share an office with Hazelight, and they're now both under the umbrella of EA as well. So they're both Swedish game development companies, so I guess they have something in common, but I think that's about it. Everything else is different. That was very different. It was not quite so much character story there, but it was amazing. It was cool. It was a very different thing. It was a very different thing altogether. But unfortunately, that's all I can say. Other than I think it's going to be equally, like, people who like that kind of game are going to really love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what we saw this weekend looked really cool. So
yeah, and the tiny bits that I have been shown from the guys at DICE looks pretty shit hot. So I think that people are going to be excited when that finally comes out. Other than that, game wise, I'm working on a couple of things, but unfortunately I can't. These days we're all tied in knots with NDA agreements, sadly, and
right.
It seems like when the big man tells us we can speak, then we try and shout as loud as we can about stuff. But I'm working on a couple of other projects in terms of games, and I've been working on going into cartoons recently, which has been amazing.
Oh, cool.
A new Netflix series called Big Tree City, which is going to be fun, and also another show for Nickelodeon. Again, I can't say a lot, sadly, but they've been so much fun, and they are much more in the scope of It Takes Two. And there's some Hispanic characters there coming to show their face. I think I've been really pleased that, I've been able to sort of live that part of my heritage in my work. It's been great. It's been great. I feel like in voiceover, one of the magic things about it is that it doesn't matter what you look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels much more a meritocracy in a way than film and television, because film and television is it's a very aesthetic medium. And so if people decide that you don't look a certain way, then you're not going to get the opportunity to be that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in voiceover, that just gets wiped away. So
the world is more your oyster.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that, more and more as I've got older, I enjoy my voiceover work, dare I say, more than my front of camera work. I just think it's so much more imaginative and liberating. And, the stories I get to tell tend to be much more expansive and interesting and diverse and not just pigeonholed and stereotyped. So I really feel that I'm very lucky to have that avenue of work available to me and open to me currently. I'm really, really enjoying it. And and I did an animated feature called Tad Jones. I did the sequel, in fact, and it's a Spanish animation company, and I'm working on Tad 3 currently, and I play a character called the Mummy, who's from Peru, but actually sounds like she's from the Bronx. So that's a fun job too. So those little things are ticking over, and there's a couple of movies that I was in, which will hopefully be released next year. I did the Batman movie. Again, I can't say anything about that other than that I was in it. But if you don't blink during the trailer of the Batman movie, I'm in it.
Awesome.
We'll have to check it out again and now listen very closely for you.
Exactly.
Speaking of superheroes, we've asked this of all of our guests on the show, sort of assembling our own podcast Avengers. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, it would definitely be flying, I think, for sure. If I could, I'd fly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really useful one. And also, like you can go anywhere, you can see anything and kind of get that nice bird's eye view and see things from a different perspective.
Exactly that. I mean, what could be better? Invisibility would be cool, I think, as well, just so you could, make sure people weren't talking shit about you behind your back. But I think flying would trump it for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, flying. I mean, what could be better than flying? I don't know. What about you guys? What would you have?
Mine, I feel like it changes from time to time, but recently I settled on wanting to be able to talk to and understand animals. I feel like that could be really useful.
Oh, yes. Dr. Dolittle vibes.
Yeah. I'm not sure when I'd ever be stuck in a jungle somewhere by myself with crazy wild animals coming at me, but I feel like that'd be useful in those kind of situations.
It would. If a lion's running after you, you could tell it some jokes maybe.
Yep.
I would always be time control because I like to sleep and I just physically don't have enough time in the day.
Yeah, I hear you. Have you got kids?
No, I can only imagine how much harder that'll be to do things on top of career.
Mate, you have no idea. Oh my God. I dream of the days before when I used to not use my time very efficiently. I've now realized. But yeah, time control would be pretty sweet too, actually. especially at the moment. Yeah, they're all good shouts, actually. Maybe if you could like coalesce all of that into one superpower.
Then you'd have a Superman situation who's overpowered.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Joseph, for your time today. We really enjoyed this chat with you, and we know our listeners definitely did too. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Take it easy.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks a lot.
Before we wrap up for the week, we want to thank Joseph Balderrama once again, if he's listening, for giving us that wonderful interview back in 2021. And before we totally end this, we want to shout out our wonderful Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. He'll be coming on the show very shortly as part of his perk as one of our Patreon producers. And in addition to that perk, he also gets access to our secret segment every month, our video vlog, and voting rights to those topics. If you want to be as cool as Steven, I know I sure do, head on over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast and check out the 3 different tiers of patronage that we offer with all sorts of different goodies and perks. Thank you again to Steven. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you all listeners for being here. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. And thanks for your patience with us as we recover from a rockin' weekend.
And stay safe and keep on podcasting.